Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make chicken and mushroom marsala with garlic mashed potatoes and some braided bread and some sauteed spinach. So let's start by getting our potatoes up and boiling. So we are going to use some red potatoes here. We're going to give them a nice kind of cube up, and we'll give them a good boil, and we're going to leave the skins on so they have that kind of nice like red color to them. That's how you get them out of like a restaurant. They have the skins in them. My kids don't like the skins as much, but tough cookies. It's easy. We had a long day today. Okay, so let's get these cubed and going, and then we are going to give our braided bread a nice coat of an egg wash and pop that in the oven to bake, and then we'll start working on our chicken marsala. But the potatoes are the ones that take the longest. And ideally, you want to try to cut your potatoes all to be about the same size so they cook up evenly in here. Now, these don't mush away like russet potatoes do, so they'll hold their form a little bit better. Versus with russets, if you overcook them, they'll just disappear in your pot. Okay, so we'll get these. And I don't know if I'm going to use that last one. We've got a lot of potatoes here. We'll just chop it up for good measure. I always tried not to have too much leftovers or any leftovers at all because we are not leftover people. So I try to minimize that and try to cook as accurately as possible. But it is hard when you're feeding like 9 people because sometimes they eat a lot, sometimes they hardly eat any. And with little kids, that's, like Evie, Jack, and Teddy all eat about the same. Lost one. Like they eat like what one person eats together. Let's get all of these in here. I may have filled my pot up a little high, so I'm going to pour just a little off. And where is that before I slip on it? Okay, we're going to pour a little bit of this water off the top since I guesstimated a bit too much. There we go. Now we're going to let these boil up nice and high until they're tender. Let's get this is a quick braided bread, like a quick challah. This you can make in like an hour, less than an hour. You just use a bit more yeast and a little bit more sugar. So it's a great alternative. I'm going to do 1 egg and add a splash of water to it. So you're going to make an egg wash, and we're going to brush this over our braided bread here, and it's going to give it a nice kind of shine. Now there's honey in this bread, which will also give it a golden color as well. We'll give this a nice whisk up. And you only need about a teaspoon or so of water in there. You don't need much. But you do want to make sure you don't have any stringy, eggy pieces to it. And now we're going to brush and try to just kind of coat it all, because this is what's going to give the bread that really pretty shine. I always have fun braiding these. The trick is when you do a braid, it's not like your classic 3-piece bread. You want to make 4 long snakes, and then you roll them together. Like you braid them together, but you kind of just interweave them with that 4th one in, and that's going to give you the really pretty braided technique, one that's a little bit more, bougie than the 3-piece braid. There. I'm just going to try to coat all these little things, because wherever it doesn't hit is you won't have that nice shine on it. So just go back over one more time. And this bread cooks up pretty fast. So we're going to put it in our oven for about 13 or so minutes, and we'll check on it and see if it's ready. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could sprinkle either sesame seeds or poppy seeds on top of this, but I like mine just like a plain Jane. Keep it simple. It's a light, fluffy, delicious, mildly sweet white bread. Okay, I'm gonna pop that. There we go. So I'm gonna set my timer for about 13 minutes Depending on your oven, it can take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. So I always do 13. Seems to work well because my oven's kind of like a middle of the road oven. Okay, let's get our chicken ready. So we've got some big chicken breast cutlets here. So we are going to kind of cut them in half since they're pretty thick. And we don't want them to be too thick when we cook them up because we want to cook them up as evenly as possible in our frying pan. Here we go. This guy's really fat and long. Let me cut off that fat tip. Anytime you see that white on the chicken, cut it off. That's fat. And chicken fat is just going to be chewy and not good. Here. And we're going to also cut them slightly smaller than this because these are really big chicken breasts. I find it strange. Sometimes I get the biggest chicken breasts from like the Costco packs. Cut that off. I'm going to cut this little white little fat bit off too. And sometimes they're like normal size. So it's like, this was like 1.5 packs of the chicken breasts. It's almost 3 pounds for like 3 chicken breasts here. There we go. Okay, that one, we're going to cut this big old honking guy in half just because it makes it a little bit easier to serve up. We'll do another one. Cooks a little bit faster too. There, let's see. That one's a pretty normal. Those are pretty, let's do that one. Okay. There, we're just end up cutting most of them in half. Now, if you have any ones that are a bit thicker, let me grab my mallet out. I have a couple thick ones, so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to give them a kind of a quick hammer because you want them to be about the same size and not too thick so they all cook up at the same time. We're not frying these like fried chicken. We're going to give them a light dusting of flour on them, but that's going to be used as like a thickener in our sauce. So you do just want them to kind of cook up quickly, get a nice sear on them, but not dry out. Let's see. There's a fat one. But it's funny how even just like cutting them in half and butterflying them, you still have these just really thick pieces of chicken. Okay, I think we have thinned these all out fairly good. Let me give my hands a good wash. Okay, we are going to make a kind of, not like a true dredge, but we're going to make a light seasoned dredge with just flour, salt, garlic, salt, pepper, and thyme. We're not doing this to create like a super thick coating on them in the sense like you would fried chicken, but it's mainly going to be used to make like the kind of nice gravy afterwards. So you want a little bit of that drippings down below. I'm going to turn my potatoes down just a smidge. They're getting a little wild in there.
Yeah, question. You get some sun today?
Yes, we were at the Renaissance Festival here. It was like the last weekend, and we were out, even though it's pretty much all shaded, it's still, the jousting is out in this big open sunny area, and it roasts you to death every year. It was like 73 degrees, but it felt like 90. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of garlic salt, a good shake around, which if you don't have garlic salt, it's like 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder. We're going to add in about a teaspoon of black pepper and a teaspoon of thyme. We're going to be using some fresh thyme, but here is a little bit of dried thyme to give a little bit more flavor, just about a teaspoon. And again, we're not aiming for a really thick coating on our chicken cutlets, just a really minor light one, but that will crisp up nicely. Okay. Wow. Before I dredge everything, let's get our olive oil heating up. I'm going to put about a nice coat on the bottom, maybe 3 tablespoons, since this is a pretty large sauce pot. And I don't want the chicken to stick to it. since it's an all clad. If it was a hex clad, I could use a little bit less because that's a better non-stick. Okay, let's get these all kind of nice little dusting on it. And this is just gonna give a nice flavor to the chicken, and kind of a slight kind of crispy edge to it, but not a true breading. And then the flour will also make just like a nice little drippings into the pan, which we'll use to thicken up the Marsala sauce. Here we go. And get this guy coated up. And so I used about a cup of flour for these. There'll probably be a little bit left over, but I find that if you don't put enough in there, then it's just hard to really coat them. So you waste a little, but it makes the job a little bit easier. You could also always put this in a Ziploc baggie, give it a good shake with all the ingredients, and do, you know, the 90s shake and bake. But I just always use my little bowl here. There. And hopefully by the time we get this done, our oil is nice and warm. It's starting to bubble at me. Okay.
Did all the kids go to the Renaissance?
They did. All of them went to it. We got some good videos, so we're going to make a little a short and then a long video for our subscribers. But they did. We had a lot of fun. You know, we go every year. I've actually been going to the Renaissance Festival since I was a kid. The one here in Nashville has been around this was the 39th year. And it is so much fun. I love it. It's a great people watching experience. Give my hands a quick wash. My 3 younger ones, we dressed them up. So Jack was Captain Jack Sparrow, so he was a nice little pirate. And Teddy, we had him in a night costume, but it got a little hot, so we took it off halfway through. And Evie was like a butterfly fairy. And so she was really cute. Next year, we said we were going to go all out and like work on our costumes like a month before. Let's see if this is nice and hot. We'll give it a little drip test. We got a good sizzle. So let me get my tongs. And we're going to start adding in our cutlets. There we go. But luckily, for the Renaissance Festival, our weather was really nice. There was prediction of rain all weekend, but it held off until, you know, an hour after we got home, and then we had the monsoon rain. So we lucked out. Here, try to get all of this chicken. I'm not sure if I'm going to coat that. See, in the middle of my pot, there has like a little, you know, pots have like the middle is a little bit higher, and I just want to make sure I get some oil on the base of it so it doesn't stick. I'm going to try to get all of these little chicken tenders in here so it fits up well. I'm not going to be able to, am I? It's always, you know, when you feed a small army, I think the hardest thing about cooking for large groups is when certain meals have like parts like this where you got to saute and brown them, but your pans are only so big, so it's really hard to like find ones that work and that can fit over your burners. I mean, I have some jumbo pots, and then growing up we had some big ones, but like Thanksgiving, when I'm cooking for like 30 plus people, you don't want to do casseroles because, you know, casseroles are blah. And it's like, how do I make great meals for everyone, but still, you know, cooking a large bunch and it not go crazy and be too hard? Okay, we've got those. We're going to let those kind of saute up. While we're doing that, let's prep up our mushrooms and I'll actually do our onion first. So we're going to mince up 1 yellow onion for the chicken marsala. And you want to do a nice kind of fine mince on it, almost to make it look like garlic when you're done with it, because you want them to really caramelize up and have little bits of flavor without being a huge texture draw from the sauce. So we're going to do a nice thing. I'm going to do a kind of a fine mince on it, and then we'll go back over with our knife to do it first. But what we're going to do is we'll saute our chicken up. We'll flip them, then we'll saute it on the other side. We'll remove the chicken from the pot because we want these nice drippings in there, and we'll then saute up our onions, some garlic, some fresh herbs and mushrooms. Then we'll make our cream, wine, and chicken broth base to the marsala, which is it's a really good comfort meal, which I think is after all the rain and being out all day and in the sun, everybody's like, oh, I need something that's nice and cozy tonight. Especially since tomorrow's going to be the traditional, Memorial Day fare, kind of that picnic brunch. I'm just hoping that it doesn't rain too bad tomorrow, so I don't have to grill in the rain. I'll just kind of pour it under my covered patio for a little bit. There we go. Ooh, these onions. Okay, these should be good. We've got kind of a nice little mince on them. Let's check our chicken here. So we're going to do a little bit longer. I want them to have more golden brown to them.
Yeah. Tomorrow, are you cooking for your siblings and everyone?
No, none of I have like one sibling who lives in town. Everyone else lives far away out of Tennessee. So I will be cooking for my family and then my stepdad and his sister. So my mom is still in Germany with her family. So I'm ready. She comes back sometime this week. So it's not going to be a huge crowd. Sometimes I've done bigger crowds, but this one will just be our main. But I always like to do the big. We always have the same thing, like every year for these, like Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. It's always like my potato salad, 3-bean salad, pasta salad. Either it's a rotation of hamburgers, chicken, ribs, steaks, one of those in there. So we always do that. Okay, I think these should. There we go. We're getting our nice kind of golden brown sear on them. That's what I was looking for. Isn't that pretty? I'll flip these through. I'm going to move we'll do a little acrobats here. And now we will be adding this chicken back into our Marsala sauce. You just sear it through right now, and then we'll add it back in.
Where did you get that, Asa?
This one is my good IKEA find. I love IKEA. And I got it from there for like $9. It's a good steal. But with their stuff, if you don't go to the store, you have to buy it. You can't buy it online. They rarely ship any of their smaller textile stuff online. But whenever you do go to the store, they have so many, and they're always on sale. Like I got one also, my like green and black one. Let me grab a trivet too. And it was like $5. Oh, beautiful. This is our challah, or kind of an egg bread. This is a fast one. So this is not the one where you have to spend like 2 hours making it, but look at that baby. It popped. Turn off my oven here since we're done with that. Oh, this is gorgeous. So I got home, and about like an hour before we started the stream, I was like, oh, I got to make a bread tonight. What should I have? Because you need something to dip into your marsala sauce. So this is a quick challah that you can make in less than an hour. And what you use 2 tablespoons of yeast and a 1/4 cup of honey, a little pinch of sugar, warm water. You let that yeast bloom. And since you're using more than you normally do, you're going to get a faster rise. And then we needed in some olive oil and flour. And you did like a quick short rise, like a 10-minute rise. Then you punched all those gases out, rolled it up. I let it proof in my oven again. And voila, this beautiful roll. It's actually one of my better ones. Okay, let's see. These are cooking up. Perfect. I'm going to turn it down a smidge. I want to just get a nice sear on all of these. Ah, he's running away from me. Get you in the middle. Okay. I'm going to get a plate. We'll be taking these out in just a minute.
You got a lot of questions for the recipe for the bread.
Okay, I'll make a recipe card for you guys, and my husband can put it all in a short for you guys. I will do it because it's a great bread, and it'll be easier that way to get it there because there's but it is one of those things like it's a pretty show me bread that you can make when you don't have like any time, which is great to have. I said anytime you can have something that you can pull out of your sleeves that looks like you spent hours making is just as great. Okay. Let's get this guy. Let those simmer here. While we're waiting for these last ones, I'm going to scoot my onions over. We'll throw them in, but we're going to start chopping up our mushrooms here. So I have about a pound of baby Bella mushrooms. You could use white button mushrooms. These are all really good ones for them. You're just going to slice them up. You can buy them pre-sliced if you want to. Again, I typically buy all my stuff from, either bulk from Costco or, and so they only ever sell them whole because they last longer when they're whole. So we'll get these all sliced up and add them in. Take a pause. Let's check on our chicken here. I was waiting for them to get some nice sears. There we go. Beautiful. And again, we will be throwing these back in towards the end. So don't worry, they're not going to get cold. These are going to soak in our sauce and steam in there. You just want to get a good sear on them because you can't get this crispy sear once you've started the, like you've thrown in all of your good stuff. Okay, I want to get these two. I should have done it in 2 batches, but they'll just take a little bit longer to sear up. That's what I always say. Don't overcrowd your pan. When you overcrowd it, it takes longer for them to sear up. If I had done half and half, they would have probably seared up faster. But when you overcrowd it, it brings the temperature of your pan down. And if my problem being that I have a big pot compared to my burner size. So my pot is bigger than my burner, which if you have gas, that's not a big problem. But on electric, it actually makes it to where your outer edges don't cook as evenly as your inner ones. So it doesn't, there we go. There's our nice sear on it. Okay. Now I'm going to add in, where's my lovely butter? We're going to turn it down to about a 4. And we're going to add in, this is going to be making kind of the creamy kind of base for our sauce. So you want to use a butter for this because it's going to be nice and thick. It thickens up versus olive oil would be a bit more runny. So we're going to use, that's about 3 tablespoons of butter. We're going to let it melt, and then we're going to add in our onions and let those saute for a minute or 2, and then we'll add in our garlic. Let's see. Spread it around. And it's really key once you're doing this, always try what they call deglazing. So you're going to scrape the bottom of your pan to get those crispy brown morsels up. They have so much flavor in them. So you want to always do that because that is where all the flavor is going to come in our sauce. It just adds just a little extra something to it. There we go. So I'm making sure I get that scraped up there so we can add it in. There we go. And I can add in the rest of these onions now, and that butter will melt just fine. Get these all in here, and this again was 1 yellow onion diced up like finely, like a fine dice close to a mince. We're gonna again cover this all in that butter. so it can really caramelize up and add great flavor. So when we add in our liquid, that will help us deglaze the rest of the pot and give even more flavors off. So don't think you've done anything wrong if you're doing this and you're making like a gravy type thing. Those little bits are going to have so much flavor. Okay, we've almost got all of our mushrooms sliced up. We got about a handful more. And then we'll saute our garlic up, our mushrooms, and then our sauce base for our chicken marsala is going to be 1 cup of chicken broth to 1 cup of cream to 1 cup of, normally you would use marsala, but I do not have marsala, so Pinot Noir is a really good substitute for it. So we'll use a cup of Pinot Noir in there, which is a form of wine, like a red wine, and it really works really well in this recipe for cooking. Since not everybody has the Italian Marsala at home. But this is one of those ones that they consider it a pretty darn good substitute. And I'm all about recipes that use what you have in your house and not necessarily specialized ingredients. There we go. So now our onions, you see they've got a nice brownish color to them. We're going to add in our garlic here. I'm going to turn it up a smidge. And I'm going to be using almost the rest of this. We'll give a good shake. You want about a tablespoon of garlic. There we go. We'll use the rest for our spinach in a little bit. So we're going to stir this around. We're going to get it searing. We're going to let that cook for about 30 seconds. Let that garlic infuse into the butter. And then we're going to add in our mushrooms. Okay. So we've got, again, this is 16 ounces of baby Bella mushrooms. And I love mushrooms, so of course chicken marsala is just delicious. And we're going to coat these in with that onion kind of mixture, and then we're going to let them kind of saute up. I'm going to bring up the heat to about a 7 so they can start crisping up. Mushrooms have a little bit of liquid in them, so they'll sweat it out. Okay, let's start prepping our fresh herbs that are going to go in here. We are going to use, this is thyme. I have both lemon thyme and English thyme in here, and we're going to mince it up and add it in here. You need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh thyme. If you don't have fresh thyme, then you could use about a tablespoon of dried thyme. You need a lot less if it's dried. We're going to add this in here. We'll add our parsley at the end to it, because if we add it in now, it will lose all of its flavor pretty fast. But the thyme will really seep into our broth. So we're going to just give it a nice mince over here. Okay. I'm going to add this in. I'm going to just scrape up because we don't want any of it to go to waste. I harvested, I have 4 thyme plants growing outside, 2 lemon and 2 English. So I was harvesting from each one because ideally, I don't want to over harvest them, then they won't be as bountiful. But I'm really waiting for the sun to come out. It's been so much rain and I need it to be sunny for a while so they can really grow. Okay. Set that. Let's check our potatoes, see how they are cooking. I'm gonna reach in here. We're gonna grab up a big fat one, and we'll see if my fork goes through. It will be nice, perfect. These are just about ready. Maybe a minute or 2 more. There's a little firmness on one part, but when you pull it out and your fork can go through it easily, and make sure you find your biggest potato when you do that. That means they're ready to whip up, and that will give you a nice soft, creamy mashed potatoes versus a lumpy. If your potatoes are undercooked, you're going to have a lumpy mashed potato. Okay. Let's get this going. So I have a cup of water here. We're going to add in a tablespoon of chicken bouillon. We'll mix it up. So you could just use straight up chicken broth. I like chicken bouillon, more flavor, and I can use it in replace of salt too, because it has plenty in it and has nice flavor. So just want to get this mixed up. There. We're going to use that. And we need cream. So I'm going to pour in my chicken bouillon first, and I'm going to work on scraping the bottom of my pan because I want those bits on the bottom, it's called deglazing, to come up to really form into our gravy type thing, our sauce base for the marsala. Here we go. There. So pretty much you can see now I have a nice clean bottom if I can stir it fast enough, but all of them, those bits are off, and what they'll do is they're gonna help thicken up the sauce. Now we're going to use a cup of the Pinot Noir. So if you don't have Marsala, Pinot Noir is a great option. You just need 1 cup of it. This is a great way if you've got wine that isn't good or bad. This is a great way to use it. Cooking wine is never good for drinking. It's saltier. There. And we'll give this a nice stir. And what we're going to do before we add in our cream, we're going to let this kind of simmer for a second, boil off some of the alcohol in it, because as we cook, the alcohol in the wine will disappear and we'll leave you just with the great flavors. But let's get our potatoes out so they are just about ready. Got my handy dandy. I'm going to use my oven mitts because it does like to steam up on me when I pour it out. So we'll get this a good pour. Okay. We're going to go bring these right back in here. I'm going to go grab a trivet to put this on because we're going to whip them up over here. Okay. That way we can leave my pan over here for my spinach that we'll be having as our veggie on the side. Look, we've got a nice simmer going here. And you can see that is steam escaping. Most of that that's coming out first is the alcohol, because that boils faster than water.
No question. Where do you get your trivets?
I'm going to say again, IKEA. I got them at IKEA. They were like $2. It's always a good buy when you get there. I always go there and I go through their kitchen stuff because they have just so much great stuff there. We're going to take a stick of butter for our mashed potatoes. We're going to slide it in here. We're going to let it melt. Let it melt before you whip it up. Now, this is for 8 people, so it's not so bad when you think about it. I always think when I make things for bulk, people don't realize that, oh, that's so much stuff, but this has got to feed a lot of people, so it's more than what you're making for yourself at home.
You have a question. How long did it take you to go through that garlic jar?
Like a month. I know it's funny. Every time I sit there, like growing up, I feel like we had 1 garlic jar in our fridge for years. And at the point where you're like, oh, is this even safe to eat? But garlic is so acidic that it kills everything. But I don't have that problem in our household. My garlic jar goes through really fast because I use it in everything. It adds such a great flavor. Like I said, if there is ever an invasion of vampires, my family is safe with the amount of garlic that is in our blood system. Okay, let's get our spinach sauteing up here. Wrong burner. Okay, got that burner on. Oh no, I did double. We are going to do for the spinach, I like to do half olive oil and half butter. Butter gives it a nice flavor, but the olive oil, I think, cooks it up a smidge nicer. So you do half and half and you get both flavors. You only need about a tablespoon of butter, so you don't need much. And this is going to cook a lot of spinach. Well, 2 bags of spinach, which will reduce down to nothing because spinach, just seems to disappear. It has that effect. It's like the snacks in our pantry. They just seem to disappear. Okay. Now I'm going to add in 1 cup of cream. Actually, I want to use up. I have had this little bit left in this one for a while, and I keep not grabbing it. You want to use heavy cream because at Marsala, there's nothing diet about this. It's delicious. It's a comfort food. Don't eat this every day, but we're going to, my hands are, apparently, I did not pull the taggle off all the way. So 1 cup. Now, if you were looking to go with a lower fat option, you could go with like a half and half, or you could even do a roux and thicken up with some flour that way. But I always like to make dishes the way they were intended to be made and just kind of work on smaller portions for people. You know, I feel like we like to eat really big portions in America, and so much goes to waste. I'm really big about making sure we have enough to feed everybody, but not everybody and our neighbors. So it's one of those things where everybody should have a portion. They should have amount, happy with the fruit, you know, the veggie, the bread and grain, but we're not, you know, gluttonous with it. Okay. And we're going to add in our spinach. We'll add them in bits by bit, because as you know, this will turn into like nothing. It will disappear before your eyes. So we'll do the first bag and then we'll add in the second bag. I'm going to turn. This is simmering down beautifully. We're going to just turn it down to a low, and we're going to just let it simmer nice and low. I'm going to give it a couple stirs, but this is going to allow some of that liquid to evaporate and to thicken up our sauce, which will turn into this lovely gravy that will go over our mashed potatoes here. Let's see. Let me grab my garlic salt and my cream, and we're going to whip these guys up. My butter should be melted first. I always stick that butter stick in there to help it melt better, because if you ever get where you start to blend it before it's melted, then you've got that butter stick that's swirling around. So put it in there, and I also use room temperature butter. It'll melt a little bit faster. Okay, we're going to give it a good whip first, and then we'll add in some cream and garlic salt, because these are going to be garlic mashed potatoes. Okay, we got our starting whip to them. We're going to start with about 1/4 a cup and a couple good shakes. I feel like potatoes, you really just have to taste as you go, because you can have some potatoes that are really starchy and that hold on to that salt better, and there's others that aren't quite as much. There we go. Now bring it up to a nice quick. There we go. These are whipping up nicely. And let's give them a nice taste, see what else we need to add. I think we'll add a smidge of cream just to make them a little bit lighter, about maybe 2 tablespoons. Smidge more garlic salt, and then we're going to chop up some parsley right over here. That will add also another beautiful but a little bright flavor of it. You don't need much. We're going to do about 1 tablespoon here. The rest of it's going to go over our chicken marsala. I'm going to slide that out of there. So we'll just go over it, give it a nice little mince. Okay. And we're going to go add this into our mashed potatoes, give you that kind of restaurant quality mashed potato. And we'll whip it up here. There we go. Tuck those guys in. Now you can see it's kind of really pulling around with it, giving you that lush, thick, but creamy mashed potato. These will be beautiful. This is also one thing I love using an all-clad pot for this, because then I don't have to get out another bowl and whip them in it. I can whip it right in there. Do not do that in a non-stick pot, because you will ruin your non-stick pot. So only if it's a full-on metal pot, nothing with a coating. But it's just easier. This makes less mess. Okay, we've got our spinach, our first wilties. Add our second one. I don't know if we'll use all of it. We'll leave half of it. We're going to give this, kind of let it steam up and coat. And now we're going to add our chicken back into our Marsala base over here, because we are getting close to being done. Give it a nice stir. And let me, before I put them back in, because I want to be able to see if I need to add anything to it. Perfect. Don't even need to add anything. Sometimes, you need a little bit more pepper or salt. We're going to layer these back in here, kind of coat them under. I'm going to turn it up, let that creamy base boil and flavor through. But you see, if you take them out and you sear them, that gives them the pretty, the pretty look to them. And then we'll put them back in here, and that will just give them a burst of flavor and that nice kind of creamy sauce to it. There we go. And then I'm going to just give this a nice, let it simmer for a minute while we work on our spinach. And then we'll be just about ready to serve everything up. I always like it when it comes together nicely, all about approximately the same time. Okay. So our spinach here, we're going to put a little bit of garlic salt on it. You don't need a lot, because spinach really holds the flavor well. And then I'm going to just grab my Parmesan cheese out. This is the way we always did our, growing up. My mom, I want to say it was like the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s. Spinach became like all the rage at our house. And we had it with Parmesan cheese, garlic, and then pine nuts. And it was like the first kind of foray out into not having frozen vegetables as our like vegetable side. I think that's like a problem with so many, like growing up, like you have so many people who they grew up on frozen vegetables or canned vegetables. So they're like, vegetables aren't good. Oh, depends how you make them. Can't say no to cheese and garlic and butter. There we go. And then we're just going to let that kind of steam up for a second. You don't need a whole lot, but I find that the shaved just goes on there really nicely. Okay. Let's look at our chicken marsala over here. Beautiful. We've got it in there. We are ready to serve up. So this is our chicken marsala we made with our mushrooms and our cream base. Let me grab my plate here. Okay. Let me grab all my utensils. I need my spoon. I'm gonna need my shovel. It's a shovel. It's a cooking shovel. And I've got tongs for that and my bread knife. Okay, so we're gonna start with our garlic mashed potatoes that we used using red potatoes. Look how creamy and lush they are. Now we have, you can see all of our cheese is melted into our spinach. We'll have a nice serving of our spinach with some garlic salt on it. And then last, we'll have the bread last, but definitely not least, we've got our chicken. We're going to do our chicken first, and then we're going to cover it with our creamy Marsala sauce with mushrooms. This will be just gorgeous. And then, of course, my show me bread over here. We've got our lovely challah bread, which is so light and fluffy. Do you see all of those right there? It's like, look at this, that good squeeze. It's just so soft and tender. So we've got it for our dinner tonight. Okay, guys. Well, we are all done here. So thank you guys for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. We do upload all of our videos to the link on the page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go on there, find that link, search for that video, and watch it again and cook with me at home again. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us here. Don't forget to like and